everyone, Kate here for another Victober video, and I wanted to do some Victorian baking today. And just looking around at different recipes, kind of what appealed to me. There was I think it was an Epiphany berry tart that looked amazing, but it involved 12 different jams. So I thought definitely didn't want to make 12 different jams and definitely didn't want to buy 12 different jams to have 12 of them lying around. So there's a good classic lemon cake recipe that I found. And I did learn a couple interesting tidbits during my research. I will link the recipe down below. It is from the website Hearth and Home, Old Fashioned Cooking and Domestics. And the recipe, they adjusted their recipe from the Improved Housewife or Book of Receipts with Engravings for Marketing, published in 1844. So I do love a good lemon cake. It's been a long time since I've had one. Typically at Easter, I like to make a lemon and blueberry cake, and I think that's a wonderful pairing. But for today, for simplicity's sake, we are just going to stick with a lemon cake. And I am planning on putting a bit of a glaze on it. So the recipe does, the Victorian recipe, I will read it to you, and then she's kind of given what she thinks the measurements would be. So take 1 teacup of butter and 3 of powdered loaf sugar, rub them to a cream and stir into them the yolks of 5 eggs well beaten. Dissolve a teaspoonful of saleratus, which is baking soda, in a teacup of milk, and add the milk. Add the juice and grated peel of 1 lemon and the whites of the 5 eggs, and sift in, as light as possible, 4 teacups of flour. Bake in 2 long tins about half an hour, much improved by icing. So you'll see kind of Victorian recipes are a little bit sparing in their instructions. And then I was looking at another Victorian lemon cake recipe, and it said, put it in a moderate oven. So I'm guessing that means 350. 350 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you in the UK. That's the typical, like, pretty much a lot of things you bake, you're going to start at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a good moderate heat. So I'm hoping, because she doesn't even have, the oven temperature on her converted recipe. So first you're going to cream the butter and add the sugar gradually. Now, one way I will be Victorian is I am going to use a whisk, not a hand mixer. So I did give myself a little cheat, though I realize now, less Victorian. I didn't remember, I wasn't organized enough to leave out my butter at the beginning of the day. So I did stick it in the microwave for about a minute, and people say, oh, you have some melted butter and some not. But I do that with baking all the time, where like 40% of the stick gets melted and the rest is all creamy, and it works out just fine. So I'm going to cream the butter and add 1.5 cups of granulated sugar. Now, one of the things I did learn from another lemon cake, Victorian lemon cake, the other one, the recipe I was looking at, it said, and have your sugar dried. And I thought, what do they mean, have your sugar dried? And that is related to when you would buy sugar in a sugar loaf. So I will put a picture right there, and it would be a little bit damp because it was put in with like a little bit over a teaspoon of water and then into a mold, and you would buy a loaf of sugar. And then you had sugar like tongs that you would pick off sugar off the loaf, and you would let it dry before you did your recipes. So that is one way I'm not being as Victorian. I didn't have a mold. It would have been very cool, though, to make the sugar loaf. But I will be measuring out and creaming together my sugar gradually. So I have my creamed butter and sugar, which it always smells so good to me. Next, I'm going to take 3 eggs and separate them. So we are in the midst of the move, and I did manage to keep this big mixing bowl packed, but I will be using paper bowls to separate my eggs into. The specific recipe that I am using doesn't talk about beating the eggs before you put them in, but the other recipe said I needed to beat them for 15 minutes. So I'm going to do kind of somewhere in the middle, and I'm just using a fork to beat them because my whisk is already dirty now. I don't know, I'm just going to beat for like a few minutes, I guess. I just want it to be a little bit fluffy before I fold it in. My arm is already getting really tired. So I can't imagine having to, like, if I had stuck with the recipe where you beat it 15 minutes by hand. It's not getting that fluffy, and I'm worried it's because it's in a paper bowl, because I know you can't do meringues in, like, meringue works best in a glass bowl. But this is making me think of, for those of you that have watched the TV series Lark Rise to Candleford, which is based on Flora Thompson's novel about her Victorian childhood. And there's one episode where Minnie, the maid, the kitchen maid, I think is told she has to whisk a cake for 40 minutes. It's a really ridiculous amount. And she's very distressed at having to do it that long. So that does not appeal to me. Just never using a hand mixer. Okay. Well, I think it's, I don't know how fluffy it's going to get in a paper bowl. So I'm just going to proceed with the egg yolks into the butter and sugar mixture. All right, I'm going to take my ½ teaspoon of baking soda and put it in with a ½ cup of milk. So just dumping it in right here. I think I'll just stir it around. Hopefully that worked. And then stir milk into creamed mixture. I will do that. Next, they want you to do the rind and juice of 1 lemon. So I'm going to zest the lemon on like this smallest size, and then I'll squeeze all the juice in after I've gotten all the zest out of it. But note, you're not using lemon extract for this. You're using actual lemon rind, which is great. It will taste very authentic and not artificial. I may or may not have just dropped a seed into my cake. I'm not sure if I did. Okay, so I will stir that up. And now I just saw directions further on in the recipe which disturbed me. It says, now gradually add in flour, but then it says beat egg whites until stiff peaks form. And I'm worried my paper bowl is ruining that. I might try it in a pot. I'm gonna see if stiff peaks start to form if I do it in a pot, or I might just not be beating it hard enough by hand. We'll see. Okay, I changed my mind because I realized I have this glass measuring cup. I could have waited like later on to do this, but then I was worried everything would be disorganized after we moved and I would just be not in a filming mindset. So, que sera, sera. Okay, so that's the only bit of foam at the very top so far. It's not looking very stiff. I just can't believe if people couldn't even use stand mixers before this, that they found out that eggs could get eggs could get stiff by beating them that long. Like, who sat there without a hand mixer by hand just fiddling around with egg whites and figured that out? I don't know. I'm over it. I have failed at being a Victorian lady. I am pulling out the hand mixer because nothing is happening. And I'm anxious to get this cake in the oven. I failed. I get a D minus. Maybe I get a C as a Victorian lady, because if the cake's really yummy, maybe that makes up for it. I have returned with nice, fluffy egg whites. But I did do some research in the time that I was fluffing the egg whites. And I did find out the first electric hand mixer, the patent was from 1887. It was an American. Americans always inventing things. And so I think maybe that means I haven't failed. Now, if I was in England, though, like, I don't know how soon were women using it in their household. Like, I don't know. But I know the patent was there in 1887. So that did bring me some comfort. So I'm going to put these cups of flour and mix them in, and then I shall mix in the stiff egg whites. All right, so this is all mixed, so I think actually what I'll do is take the whisk out and switch to a spatula to fold the whites in. Now I realized, now that I've made this is actually technically a sponge cake, and sponge cakes terrify me. I've had, in the past, like, 4 years, I've tried 3 different times to make sponge cake and failed every time. So I'm glad I didn't overthink that before making this, because even if it's flat, it'll still be a sweet and tart lemon cake, which I love the sound of. So hopefully it will turn out, though. We shall see if it does. And I'll just pour it into the pan now, which I have already buttered to prevent it sticking to the pan. So there's the buttered pan, all gleaming. I'm going to stand up for this next bit. It looks like I'm pouring the cake onto the book. I promise I'm not. The book was just propping up the camera. It doesn't tell me how long to put the cake in. Neither the updated recipe or the Victorian recipe. So I'm just going to guess 20 minutes because I would always rather I would always rather underbake something. So I'm going to put it in for 20 minutes and just keep checking on it every couple minutes after that. But the batter tastes delicious, so I'm really excited about this cake. The cake is in the oven, and while it has been in the oven, I have been working on a glaze for the cake. So with the glaze, I've just done lemon juice and powdered sugar. I wasn't quite sure if powdered sugar would have been around then, but I looked and it was totally invented in the Victorian era. Makes sense because the Victorians they loved their sweets, and that's like, sugar was really becoming a lot more accessible then. So I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. And the recipe itself suggested having an icing, but I find with cake, I think less is more. Like, I love a glaze on a cake sometimes. But what I thought was very interesting, I looked into royal icing, which before the Victorian era was called egg white icing. And then during Queen Victoria's wedding, for her wedding, they made a cake with egg white icing, but since her wedding was such a big deal, they started calling it royal icing. So that's where the term royal icing comes from, which I find fascinating. So I'm going to brew some tea. I'm going to sit down and film another video, but then I'll show you the cake when it is done. I'm going to have cake with tea, and it's just going to be wonderful. Hi, I'm here with my cake. I have a mug of tea, beautiful watercolor mug provided by Kate from the novel Nomad. And let's try the cake. So here it is. It's I don't even know what I was talking about. I was going to comment on how it baked, but I don't really know. I mean, they just say lovely bake on British Bake Off, right? So let's see. It looks like I didn't overbake it. And I like how it's very, I don't know if you can see, but it's very shiny on top from the glaze I put on. Oh my goodness. Oh. Okay, this is very good. I always worry with lemon flavored things that A, it either won't taste lemony enough, or B, it will be too lemony, like not sweet enough. And this is perfect. Oh, so yummy. Okay, success. So exciting. Oh, all right. I love a good lemon dessert. And I kind of like them year round, not just like in spring or summer. I love lemon desserts. Also, I did look up because I just wanted to make sure like when lemons came to the UK, and they would have come with Columbus, which I found fascinating. So they came, you know, late 1400s, early 1500s. And yeah, found it very, very interesting. And Victorians also loved lemonade, which I love because it's still very loved today. Lemon's just a great flavor, okay? So I will link that recipe down below. Cheers. Oh, I ended up baking it for around probably 35 minutes. I could tell it was definitely not done, only after 20. And I baked it in not a 9 by 13, like a, oh, I can't remember the name of that, like the measurement of that pan, but it's the one just smaller than a 9 by 13. So I hope you enjoyed this video of Victorian baking, and which I kind of failed at, kind of not, because technically there was an electric mixer patent, but I don't think most Victorian women were using that. It just makes me thankful for my modern electric hand mixer. So they did have, though, those kind of, it's like a whisk, but with a handle you could spin. I'll put the picture up. So that was like a slight advantage, but I still feel like my arms would get very tired. So anyhow, thank you for watching my baking adventure, and I will be back with another Victober video soon. Thanks. Bye.